Did it start? No. Yes. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks to everyone that joined us. Um, we're just about to get started. All right, let's share the screen. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Anna Bakuntz, and today we are going to be talking about I-9 compliance for employers. We have decided to change our series just a little bit, in the sense that they are going to be 30-minute rapid fire webinars talking about different red flags that we get to see with our clients, that we get calls from on a daily basis, different issues. And of course, as we all aware, I-9 compliance is a big one right now, especially with everything that's going on in California, especially since we are in California. So in the chat box, I asked that you put your contact name, business name, contact information, and why are you attending this webinar. If you can't write it in the chat, it's fine to write it in the message, and we will make sure that we rotate the information between everyone else, just to make sure that we also treat these events as a networking event also. Let's go ahead and just get started. We are, as I said, these webinars are going to be 30 minutes. We won't necessarily do Q&A sessions just because we may not have the time. But if you have any questions as we go along, if there's anything you want to inquire more about, or if you have any specific questions, our email is on the bottom of our every single slide of ours. So you're more than welcome to jot that email down and email us with any questions that you may have. So today's topic is I-9 compliance for employers, what to do if ICE comes to your workplace. A lot of times with any kind of audit, the most important thing is not to panic, and it is most important to be ready for these audits even before they are to come your way. And this is exactly why we're doing these sessions, to make sure that you guys are educated as employers, as supervisors, managers, as members of the leadership in your company, or if you're a business owner yourself. So going in, let's just say our agenda. We're going to have a little welcome as we talked about why this topic gets employers nervous, what I-9 is really about, the first big red flag, some timing rules we'll cover incomplete or sloppy forms, which we see all the time as we're doing our audits. And also another red flag is asking for the wrong documents the wrong way, or asking for additional documents, asking for too much paperwork, a lot more than you need. So other red flags, too many people touching the process, storage chaos, right? Where do you store your I-9 documentation, or where do you store your documentation at all? Re-verification confusion. And then, of course, the big question of what happens if ICE comes to your workplace, the notice of inspection, do you have that? Do they have that, or do they not have it? And what should your front desk and managers do and not do? And what to do so they're not in panic mode and they're more prepared and they feel prepared, so you can rock this visit as they come in and just set them their way for them to come and hopefully never come back. So let's just jump in. Um, so HR red flags, right? We decided to do these series because we get exposed to different industries, different clientele, different issues that we get to see. There are some very common ones that we see on a regular basis. So the big idea behind these series, these 2-month series, was to make sure that we cover these red flags. We want you to know what these red flags are, and either we are the support for you to help these, or if you get the knowledge from this and take it and decide with your team on how you're going to implement, by all means, that means we are successful in our mission. So I-9 compliance for employers and what to do if ICE comes to your place is exactly what hopefully you will know at the end of this webinar. Now, why this topic gets employers nervous, right? It's fast moving, there are very high stakes here, and it's often mishandled. Very oftentimes, and we'll talk about this in more detail, but what we see is that too many people get involved with this form, and it seems like it's a very simple form, and it is when you know what to do and when you know how to fill it out. However, too many people get involved with filling it out. It just gets passed on to different people. The timing is also very important with this form, and that's why it's so important that you also know how to make sure that you do this form on time, properly, and the most proper way so you are in compliance. Now, what I-9 form is really about? It is there to verify identity. It is there to verify work authorization. And you need to complete it correctly. You need to complete it on time and you need to retain it properly. So, important things. What I-9 is trying to do. I-9 is trying to say that you are who you are. I-9 is also trying to say that you are authorized to work in the United States. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you fill out all the forms properly, all the sections properly. But the key here is that also it needs to be completed on time. And what this means is that it needs to be filled out within 3 days of your new hire. So once they started working, you have 3 days from that moment to fill out the I-9 form. As in, you have 3 days to verify that they have their identity and they are who they claim they are, and they are authorized to work in the United States. And of course, the last point that we have in our slides is retain properly. Retention is important, very, very important with most of your files, right? Your payroll records, you have to keep training records, you have to keep with the new regulations that we have in California. But I-9 is another one that you have to keep within 3 years. And 1 year after the employee resigns. So very important to talk about retention too. Make sure that you keep these. You don't just toss it away the moment your employee leaves. The first big red flag we'll talk about is we'll handle it later, right? So I hear a lot of times, and you will be surprised, but many large companies have these issues as well. There are problems with late completion, right? The 3 day deadline that we talked about, they're completed much later than that. Missing signatures. There's a place where you need to sign as an employer, you as the company or an authorized representative, and then the employee needs to sign as well. So the top portion is where the employee signs, the bottom portion is where you need to sign. So at the very least, we need two signatures on that form. If there's a translator that's filling out this form, we also need their information as well. And it's very important for you to keep this in mind also. So, late completion, missing signatures, wrong dates, right? Sometimes we'll have people fill out the form on a wrong date. Sometimes we'll give them the form on time, but they'll say, "Oh, we just put the wrong date." Dates need to match, it needs to be corrected, and they need to be complete. And the other last part that we also want to talk about is no ownership. So, who is the person in your company that's handling these forms? If it's one person, that's fine. Who is this person? And we want you to know who this person is. If it's by department, sure, that's also fine. But have this identify and know who this person is or who these people are. If it's the managers filling out this form for you and you are the HR department and they give it back to you, then you need to know exactly who is the person that handles it for every single department. So make sure that you have ownership for this because this is one of the big red flags that we see over and over. Sometimes we'll have employers say, "Oh, I thought so and so was doing it." And the other person will say, "Oh, I thought this person was doing it." And so what you have at the end is an incomplete file and a mishandled I-9 form, which causes issues right then and there. Timing rules that you need to respect. So section number 1 is the employee side, right? You need to make sure that they fill out this form, they fill it out properly. The second part is the employer review. So once your employee filled out the form, there's also the second part, which is the employer review portion. And this is exactly where you have your employees bring you the documentation that they're bringing to submit for this form, and you need to review it and you need to write it properly. And what I say properly, sometimes and many times, the social security number of people when they come into, like of candidates, new hires, they don't always come from the Social Security Administration. Sometimes they come from Department of Health Services. It comes from different places. And the most important part is to make sure that you actually look at that form and you know which government entity issued the Social Security form. You need to fill this out properly. If it's a driver's license, please make sure that you cover all the points that it's asking you for, because if it's not complete, then you don't have the right, your form is not complete. So do not let the timing drift. Make sure that you do it within the first 3 days of your new hire's start of employment. These 3 business days, they do matter. They do pay attention to this. It is your responsibility as an employer, leader, manager, supervisor to make sure that you do this on time and it's proper as well. Another red flag, incomplete or sloppy forms. So this is where you have blank fields, you have missing dates, unsigned sections, different practices by location. Nobody is double checking, right? It is one form. It's literally 2 pages long with this, along with the additional documentation. But imagine if I fill it out or you have someone fill out and then say like, "Oh, let me do it later." You need to do it properly. You need to do it on time. You need to make sure that the dates are there properly and everything is recorded and everything is correct. So make sure that you don't have missing dates. Make sure that you again signed all the sections, two sections at the very least, one by the employee and one by the representative, authorized representative of the company. And you need to make sure that if you have different locations, they all know the same practices, they all have the same training on how to do these I-9s and make sure that it is proper. Another red flag is asking for the wrong documents the wrong way. So do not demand specific documents, right? You should not be saying, I want to see, when you have a new hire and you say, I want to make sure, I want to see your citizen passport. I want to see this. You don't want to say, I want specific documentation. What you want to give them is the documentation that the I-9 is supporting, the I-9 form is supporting. And there are many of these, right? So if it's a green card, if it's a white card, if it's a driver's license and social security, there are different ways. You can tell them the different options they have if you want to enlighten them and explain to them. However, you should not be demanding to see a driver's license. You should not be demanding to see a social security card if they have a US passport rather than they want to bring their US passport. So do not over document, do not demand specific documents, and apply the process consistently. Your process needs to be very consistent to make sure that you avoid any kind of discrimination risk and you're not exposing to yourself to additional liability. So again, just to cover it, do not demand specific documents, do not over ask, do not try to over cover yourself. There is no such thing. All you need to do is get the right forms that the I-9 is requesting, fill it out properly, and you're good to go. Another red flag is too many people touching the process. So HR does it one way, operations does it another, managers improvise, and there is no central review and no accountability. If you want your managers to do this, that's totally fine. If you want operations to do it, that's totally fine, but make sure you have an additional layer of protection. So if it's managers or operations employees doing it, that's totally okay, but make sure you have HR review it at the end of the day. If you don't have an HR department, make sure your payroll manager is reviewing at the end of the day, your CFO, whoever this person is, but there should be a central review point, a checkpoint for you to make sure that there is accountability on this person and make sure that the managers and supervisors are also feeling accountable for their actions, for the way they fill out this process and the form as well. Another red flag is storage chaos. So where do you put your personnel files? Where do you store your I-9s? It should all be in one place, right? So what I always advise to our clients is to make sure that they have one binder with all the I-9s in there, in an alphabetical order. Best way to have it all together. It's there. You always, you can always do your audits really quick. You can do your reviews really quick. And that's the best way that you can protect yourself to make sure that you have it and you do, frequent checks as well of, making sure that is there re-verification needed? Is there anything that you're missing? Is there anything that you need to look at and follow up with? Electronic files, you should also save them somewhere else. So really, you should have two places to store your files. One should be paper and it's in one place in one binder, and you should also have electronic copy of these stored somewhere else. Make sure that it's safe, it's confidential because it has very sensitive information about your employees. And there shouldn't be a quick retrieval process, right? Because of this confidential information that you're storing, you need to make sure that you have a very thorough process. If someone comes to you and says, I want to see this person's I-9, your very first question and reaction should be, why? Why do you need to see it, right? There is absolutely no need for anyone to see these files other than, a government official if they have the proper work documentation to be wanting to request it. And if there's a court order or anything like that, then you do, of course, have to show it. But any other case, you do not need to. And then, of course, no retention discipline. We just covered how you need to make sure that you keep these files even after they leave. You need to keep them for at least 1 year. Another red flag, re-verification confusion, right? So not every expiration means re-verification. You do not need to re-verify if they're United citizens, but you do need to re-verify if they have any expired documentation as far as their green card or anything else that does talks about their authorization to work, right? So if there's anything related to work authorization, you need to make sure. If you're not sure if a form needs to be verified, re-verified, one, you always need to make sure that you check with the USCIS website or even call them in person, or you actually need to make sure that you look at the form properly and make sure that it is covered or uncovered and what do you need to do to fix it. So not every expiration needs to be re-verified and not every employee should be re-verified. And the wrong follow-up can create risk, right? So basically, if someone brought you a driver's license and then they brought you their social security card, if there is then no expiration card on their social security card, you may not need to request their social security card again. If there is a an expiration date on their social security card, then you do want to make sure that once that expiration date is coming closer, you remind the employee that, oh, look, your social security card is expiring, is about to expire. Please make sure that you bring me the paperwork as soon as possible because this is their authorization to work in the United States and it's needed. Now, what happens if ICE comes to your workplace? The first thing that you need to do is not panic, right? We don't want you to panic. We don't want you to improvise. You should not be over talking. You should not be over explaining. You should escalate it immediately and you should control the response. So the best way to achieve this is to actually train your employees for the same thing, right? The more trained your employees are, the more trained your managers are and supervisors are, the less they will panic if they see ICE showing up to your workplace. And so what needs to be done here is you need to make sure that you have a designated person this person is the one that is going to handle talking to them, dealing with them, all the things, right? So instead of just saying things, instead of improvising, instead of trying to say, oh, this person is out sick, over talking, all these things, all your employees need to know is who is this person, who is this authorized representative that can talk to these guys and see what do they want, what's going to happen. So it's controlled and it's managed and it's not panic because the more you panic, the more your employees are going to panic as well. And that's going to cause problems right then and there. Now, the notice of inspection matters. So, if ICE was to come in for an audit, they actually give you a notice of inspection and they give you 3 days to produce these I-9s. That means you have some time of a relative fair warning as to make sure that you're going through your files and you should be using your time wisely. Now, what's important is do not create chaos. Do not try to fix things. Do not try to reproduce documents. Do not try to backdate things. What USCIS actually allows for is for you to correct your mistakes. So if you don't have something, if something's not done, if something is, improper, do not panic. Instead of creating and forging documents or anything like that, you should just make sure that everything is ready. You should actually be doing this proactively, right? Not to panic in that moment and to know that you have things properly. So yes, they allow for corrections, but obviously it is, of course, also important not to have any, to not cause any other red flags, so they can come in and they don't have to come back ever. If you have way too many issues, then this is exactly where they might come back again later, whenever they want to come back. Now, what front desk should do, what the front desk and managers should do if this happens, if they do come into your office, company, wherever you are. The number one thing is to stay calm, right? And again, you need to train your front desk and managers for for them to know this. They need to know exactly what it is. They need to stay cool, calm, and collected, as they say, and make sure that they don't react, they don't overreact, and they do not panic. So staying calm is number one, but make sure that people know that this is what it is. Notify the designated contact, right? If since they come in, you just stay calm. You notify the designated contact. This person is going to come in and help them and support them and handle the issue. Do not answer beyond your role. Do not guess. Do not volunteer extra information. Any kind. This is not just for like ICE audits or any other audit. This applies to every single audit. Every time they ask you for information, first you want to make sure that they have the proper work documentation or order or notice to request this information. But also it is very important that for you not to overshare any extra additional information because this is exactly how you can cause additional problems for yourself and you do not want this. So do not answer beyond your role. If you're a front desk, just say, I notify the designated contact, they'll be right out, right? Do not guess, do not assume, do not suggest that, oh, it's because so-and-so is, like they have issues, this is why they're here. You do not know this, right? So if you're a front desk or you're a manager, you should not be guessing, you should not be assuming, and you should not be volunteering extra information. What employers should not do in panic mode, right? Do not backdate. We just covered this. We do not want to backdate anything. We do not want to add anything. We do not want to have any fraudulent documentation, no whiteouts, none of that stuff, right? We don't want you to alter records carelessly because it is not okay, because you're going to cause yourself even more problem. Do not start cleaning up without a process. Do not try to like just request people random documentation from random people. What you can do and what you should be doing is conduct these reviews on a periodic basis. If it's annual, if it's twice a year, if it's, like once every 2 years, whatever your process is, you should have a process, you should be having it proper, and you should make sure that you have all the things correct and you have a structure that you're following in this process. And another thing is to make sure that you do not let everyone get involved for many reasons. And one of the main ones being is that again and again, I-9 information is very confidential information. So the person that you want to keep in these cleanup process, as we call it, is people that, like not too many people. And you also want to make sure that these people are trained in the following the process properly, in filling out the paperwork properly, in paying attention to the right things, the dates, all the things. So you don't want everyone getting involved. You don't want it to get too messy because again, that's going to create panic and chaos in the process. What good looks like before there is a revisit, right? Like what is the good? What's proper? What's good for like the I-9 forms and your binder that's going to have all the I-9 forms as well. It's clear ownership, knowing exactly who the person is in charge of making sure that I-9 forms are proper. Is it your HR department? Is it someone specific in the HR department? Is it a manager? Is it a leader? Is it your operations manager? Whoever this person is, we need to we need to have a clear ownership, or we need to know who the owner of this responsibility is. You need to make sure that you have a consistent onboarding process and consistent onboarding steps. I know technically, like onboarding doesn't have anything to do with I-9, but also at the same time, it has everything to do with I-9 because you only have your first 3 days to sign this form. And these 3 days is exactly part of their onboarding process. So make sure that you have consistent onboarding steps. If you have many different locations, you want to make sure that this form is part of their hiring packet, but not just a part of their hiring packet. It's also in an organized manner. It's also filled out correctly and within the proper timing frame, which is 3 days. We want to make sure we have organized records. So if you have multiple locations or your managers are the ones taking this form, you want to train them and you want to make sure that they refer you the information in a proper organized manner where you can see exactly what it is, you can see what's right and what's wrong with the form and also the other additional forms that you have in the onboarding process. You want to make sure that you have an escalation protocol. So say you're doing a review and you see something's wrong. What's going to happen? How are you going to resolve it? Or, again, if ICE shows up to your workplace, what do? Do people know the escalation protocol? Do they know the escalation process? Do they know the designated person? All of these are very important important components of success for this, in preparing you for these audits. And of course, periodic internal reviews. Every time we go into clients and we ask them if they have personnel files, they say, yeah, everything's nice and proper. And then you go in and you see that something as simple, relatively simple as an I-9 form has so many issues. Sometimes they don't fill it out correctly. Sometimes the dates are way off. Sometimes they don't have the right forms filled out, right? So that's another thing to know and make sure that you're on top of as an employer or as a business owner as well. Now, key employer takeaways from this, right? Like, what are we talking about? What are we covering in this webinar? Is that most risk is operational, right? Messy files create stress, and then when it's nice and organized, this is what's going to create success for you. This is what's going to support you in rocking this audit or this visit. Untrained managers create exposure, not just with I-9s, but with everything else in your business. If you have untrained managers, you're causing yourself so much risk and liability, you cannot possibly even imagine it. So very important that you train your managers on how to fill out the I-9 form, how to do it properly, what to do in case of an emergency, how are they going to react, who are they to reach out to. They need to know exactly what's going on with this to make sure that you are in compliance. So preparation beats panic, right? The more prepared your employees are as to, if these visits are to happen, sure, it's an alarming topic to have, or it's an alarming conversation to have with your employees. But at the same time, if you do have this conversation with them and you tell them exactly what to know, even if they know that you as a leader are prepared for this, they will feel better. They will, again, they will not panic or they will not be stressed out when the problem does come into your workplace. So preparation beats panic, and small gaps can become big problems. So even though you might think, oh, it's just a signature, I'll sign it whenever, their forms need to be signed by employer, by you, they need to be done the proper way. So even if it's a tiny, tiny issue right now, it can escalate, it can add up to become a bigger problem. What are the next steps for you right after this webinar? So it's a few things that you can do, but before I do want to tell you about March 31st deadline. That's in a way related to these to the conversation that we're talking about. In California, you have to make sure that before March 31st, you have an additional emergency contact person for your employees, an additional contact in case if they are to be detained or arrested. So who are your employees going to reach out to, or who are you going to reach out to if one of your employees is arrested or detained? So make sure you have this additional designated contact in in their files. This is a compliance matter, so it's very important that you stay on top of this. So the deadline is March 31st, which is literally next week. As far as next steps for us, we have created an I-9 employer red flags checklist that we are going to send to you following our webinar. We also have a service if you're interested in more support, if you need us to do it for you, or you need us, our company to walk through the process for you. We also have an I-9 file audit and a correction protocol that we can support you with. And if you're not sure which one of these is there, you need support with, or if you have any additional questions, you're not sure what to do and how to go from here, we do offer free 20-minute consultations to support you. Again, you have the email right on this website, right on this slide. So you can email us requesting an appointment, and our team will work very fast to get that spot for you. I will see if we have any questions, and if we do, we will do the best to respond to them via email in our marketing webinars. Here's our get in touch information, our phone number, our email, and our website. Should you have any questions, if you're interested in any audits, policy updates, training, and of course, the free consultation that we just talked about. We have more upcoming webinars. Coming up, we have next time we're going to talk about workers' compensation mistakes that employers make after an injury, right? Workers' compensation is another red flag that we see all the time where people are not sure how to follow procedure, or they haven't been following the procedure, or they do a lot of things right, but some key components they do miss correctly, which again exposes them to immense amount of risk. Right after that, we're going to talk about wage and hour mistakes that put employers at risk. We've had multiple webinars on this, but it seems like it is a good topic for employers to know more and more about, and there's never enough. And we also love making sure that we have very practical examples for you to see that, for you to learn from these and see how you can improve your own processes. Termination mistakes is another topic we'll cover. Leave of absences, of course, that's another conversation that we are going to have and make sure that it's all covered, as well as retaliation claims. We now have had some clients who have gone through these as well, so we want to make sure that you don't have to go through it. And of course, harassment complaints. What do you do? What should you do first? And how you should handle these if they come your way? Our last webinar in this series is going to be manager comments that create HR problems and legal risk. You will be surprised at the amount of exposure that we see that managers expose companies for by not being trained on what to say and what not to say. It is so important to make sure that your managers are trained, especially if you're a smaller or a medium-sized business. A lot of times managers are promoted to become a manager because they've been in the company for a long time, because they know processes. However, they're not always the best managers, right? Like people managers, and they just need the training. Not to say that they can't do it, but they just need the training for it. So that's the reason we have our last webinar on this topic as well. With this, I'm going to say thank you to everyone that joined our webinar. It's always a pleasure to share the knowledge that we have, and we will see you next week. Same time, Thursday at 12 o'clock. Thanks to everyone that joined, and we'll see you soon.